My parents kicked me out several years ago and sent me a letter. Today I received a call from them and I realized they are even worse than what I thought. I 28M never thought I'd be sharing this story, but recent events have left me reeling, and I need to get it off my chest. It's been 7 years since my parents kicked me out, and I thought I'd finally moved past it all. But a letter and a phone call later, I'm realizing that some wounds run deeper than I ever imagined. Let me take you back to where it all began. I was 21, fresh out of college with a degree in computer science. My parents had always been strict, with sky-high expectations for my academic and professional life. They'd mapped out my entire future, prestigious tech company, six-figure salary, the works. There was just one problem. It wasn't what I wanted. I discovered my passion for teaching during my senior year, volunteering at a local school. The joy of helping kids understand complex concepts, seeing their eyes light up when they finally got it, it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I knew then that this was what I wanted to do with my life. When I told my parents about my decision to pursue teaching instead of tech, all hell broke loose. "We didn't pay for your education for you to throw it all away," my father bellowed. My mother was more subtle but no less devastating. "You'll never amount to anything as a teacher," she said, her voice dripping with disappointment. The arguments went on for weeks. They tried everything: guilt trips, threats, even bribes. But I stood my ground. Finally, one night, my father uttered the words that would change everything. "If you're not going to live up to your potential, you can't live under our roof." I still remember the shock I felt, the disbelief that they would actually kick out their own son over a career choice. But they were serious. I had 48 hours to pack my things and leave. Those first few months were tough. I couch surfed with friends, picked up odd jobs to make ends meet, and started my teaching certification. It was hard, but I was determined to prove to myself, and maybe deep down to them, that I could make it on my own. Over the years, I built a life for myself. I got my teaching certification, landed a job at a great school, and even bought a small house. I made new friends, found a supportive community, and slowly the pain of my parents' rejection began to fade. I hadn't heard from them in all this time. No calls on birthdays or holidays, no attempts to reach out. I'd made peace with it, or so I thought. Then last month, a letter arrived. I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately, and my heart started racing. Part of me wanted to throw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was unexpected. My mother wrote about how they'd been following my career from afar, how proud they were of what I'd accomplished. She said they regretted their actions and wanted to reconnect. The words seemed sincere, and I found myself tearing up as I read them. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process, to figure out how I felt about this sudden olive branch. Part of me was wary. 7 years of silence is a long time to overcome. But another part, the part that still longed for their approval, was hopeful. After a week of internal debate, I decided to give them a chance. I sent a brief email saying I was open to talking. I included my phone number, half expecting never to hear from them. Yesterday, my phone rang. It was my father. The conversation started cordially enough. He asked about my job, my house, my life in general. I answered politely, keeping things surface level. Then, he said something that made my blood run cold. "You know, son, we always knew you'd come around eventually. Now that you've proven yourself, we can help you transition into a real career. I've got some contacts in the tech industry who'd be interested in someone with your unique background." I was stunned. They hadn't changed at all. They still saw my chosen career as some sort of phase, a stepping stone to what they considered real success. All that talk about being proud of me? It was just a way to get their foot back in the door, to try and steer me back onto the path they'd always wanted for me. I listened in disbelief as my father outlined his grand plan for my future, complete with job offers and networking opportunities. He didn't once ask if this was what I wanted. It was like the last 7 years hadn't happened at all. When I finally found my voice, I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "Dad," I said, cutting him off mid-sentence, "I'm not interested in changing careers. I love my job, I'm good at it, and I'm happy." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then his voice hardened. "Don't be ridiculous. You can't possibly be satisfied with that job. Think about your future." And just like that, I was 21 again, standing in our living room, being told that my dreams weren't good enough. But this time, something was different. This time, I knew my worth. "My future is exactly what I'm thinking about," I replied. "And it doesn't include people who can't respect my choices or see my value beyond a paycheck." I heard my mother's voice in the background, asking what was going on. My father's muffled explanation, his growing frustration. Then my mother came on the line. "Sweetie," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "we're just trying to help. We want what's best for you." "No," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "You want what's best for your image of me. There's a difference." The conversation devolved from there. Old accusations were thrown around, guilt trips attempted, but this time I didn't waver. I stood my ground, defending my choices and my happiness. Finally, exhausted and emotionally drained, I said, "I think we're done here. Please don't contact me again unless you're ready to accept me and my life as they are." I hung up before they could respond. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. There was anger, certainly, and hurt. But there was also a sense of relief, like I'd finally cut the last thread tying me to a past I'd outgrown. Today, as I write this, I'm still processing everything. The hope I'd felt when I got that letter seems naive now. I realized that I'd been holding on to a fantasy, the idea that they'd finally see me for who I am and be proud of me on my own terms. The reality is much harder to swallow. They haven't changed. They still see me as an extension of themselves, a project to be molded, rather than a person to be loved unconditionally. But here's the thing. I've changed. I'm not that insecure 21-year-old anymore, desperate for their approval. I'm a successful teacher, respected by my colleagues and loved by my students. I have friends who support me, a community that values me, and a life I've built on my own terms. To anyone out there struggling with family expectations or feeling pressured to live someone else's dream, it's okay to choose your own path. It's okay to prioritize your happiness over others' expectations. And it's okay to set boundaries, even with family, when they can't respect your choices. I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt. There's a part of me that will always wish for that movie-perfect reconciliation. But I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to let go of toxic relationships, even when they're with the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. As I look around my small but cozy home, at the pictures of my students and the thank you notes from parents, I know I made the right choice all those years ago. My success might not look like what my parents envisioned, but it's real, it's mine, and I'm proud of it. To my parents, if by some chance you ever read this, I love you. I always will. But I love myself too, and that means I can't let you dictate my life or my worth. The door isn't completely closed, but the terms of entry have changed. Ball's in your court. And to anyone else out there facing a similar situation, you're stronger than you know. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's expectations. Build the life that makes you happy. Surround yourself with people who support your dreams, and never apologize for choosing your own path.